Hey, welcome back. We are at episode 5 of the Hello Player One podcast. We're your hosts, Jack and Clayton. So today we're going to talk about the top 5 Sandbox experiences. We're going to talk about some of the stats from these experiences. So let's start with that. Clayton, I showed you the stats yesterday about LedgerVerse and how many players it had and how long players play on average in their experience. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Well, they were pretty good because what the stats were 300,000 visits, right? And then about 20 minutes average play, which sounds impressive. And it's a game that I actually played. I didn't play many of them throughout the season, but this is one I did play. And it was one that I wasn't able to finish because of a bug. So, I mean, it looked cool. It was a cool experience. And I think what the narrative that you think will be popular is the storytelling. And that did a good job on being a storyteller, education type game, because Ledger is such an important, hard wallets in general, not just Ledger, but hard wallets, the concept is an important security feature for crypto that a product that you want to have in crypto and understand that. So having a game to interact with, to learn those things is, I think, a good tool. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, my first thought was, whoa, it's way more than I thought, because in our previous podcast, I had estimated conservatively there would be on average 20,000 players going through these experiences. I pulled that number because Sandbox, they shared how many daily users they had, total users, and then I looked down the leaderboard, and saw that I was not even anywhere close to top 10,000 players. And so just by that, I thought, well, I don't think every player went through every single experience, but it looks like a lot of them did. And I think that 300,000 number, I think it's pretty close to the number of players that play the other experiences. I think it's close. I don't think it's all of it. I remember Ledger was one of the earlier ones that came out. And so, in their 2-month alpha season, they release experiences like a couple of days. There's like a couple at a time per day. And I remember LedgerVerse was one of the earlier ones. So, they might have gotten the benefit of getting more users early on. And then towards the end, like maybe not as many players are playing certain experiences. So, yeah, I think it's a huge number. I'm really surprised that they had the most average playing time of all the experiences. At least that's what the post talked about. And I think those numbers are real because Sandbox gives them those numbers on how many players visit it. So we're talking about people that started the experience, but not necessarily the ones that completed it. It would be cool if they had that number too, and what percentage of people finished the experience. So, yeah, huge number, long playing time, in my opinion, 20 minutes for a game. So I didn't play that one in Alpha Season 3 because I played it when they were testing it, and they had put it in the Sandbox or the Game Maker draft gallery. So I tried it out. I thought it was decent. The assets were cool. I thought the storyline was okay. So I didn't finish the whole thing. But I think, yeah, it's very bullish for the Sandbox. So one thing that they do really well is they do the marketing really well to get players in. I was surprised that they're gaining that many players. Now, it is incentivized, so that we got to keep that in mind, right? Because people that play, they're playing to earn tokens. Could they keep doing this? I don't know. It's I can't see it keep doing this for like, in season 6, right?
Well, that's the thing with so we talked, I think, the last time that the KYC people, it was 100,000 of those were KYC. Like, so that's how I view kind of how many of those were playing for money. And I'm curious on the Ledger one, is because when I played it, there was a bug. I couldn't finish it. And I think we talked yesterday a little bit about just off air or whatever. And we talked about that there was bugs. So there is a level of people might have gone back to that experience to make sure you get the count for the fund, or like the token prize at the end. So I'm wondering if there's like ended up being 3 bugs, and it's really the 100,000 people were playing it 3 times. So it's kind of like, I bet there's some of that level to it as well.
Yeah. Maybe it was like designed on purpose. Like, I don't know. I'm just kidding. But definitely the average playing time, I think they maybe might have gotten the benefit there of having people to go back and replay it. I know that they did some really interesting things where you would get NFTs once you finish all the quests. So, yeah, this is something that I have been telling clients on what they can do on doing a tie-in with the Sandbox, which is they're running essentially a very long commercial for the brand. After they finish the commercial, they're going to know a lot. They're going to know a lot about the brand, the story. And so afterwards, you could get people to maybe like enter into a drawing for an NFT that's outside the Sandbox. That is worth, very limited and is worth more. That could have been what LedgerVerse did. And, we can look into it for the next podcast. I know that they were also giving away actual ledgers. So who they gave that out to, I'm not sure.
Yeah, the free stuff, because also you get with the if you give away an NFT, it's on chain, so you know who owns. I mean, you don't know the person in particular sometimes, but you know the wallet that has it. You can see what kind of stuff that person collects in that wallet. There's tools you could leverage to get an idea of other wallets that person might own. So there's that level of marketing that you could potentially do based on that. And then too, if you have like, let's say you partner with a big streamer, and then you allow them to hand out, NFTs on their behalf, you are able to funnel a cheap, I won't say cheap, but it's like cheap to make, I guess, NFT that you could have someone hand out, and then you get the ad of people playing that experience, running through it, and then you get the multiplier of someone popular streaming it, and then that is also commercial because they're running around your land with their fans and stuff. So you get that kind of a multiplier as well, and then you're also handing out the NFTs. So it's a more direct connection with the following, and you're getting a fan base that way, which I don't think is as easy now. You can do it with Fortnite skins, but again, they don't own it. It's you don't have any kind of like, there's no secondary type sales that someone can do to. One of the things that is underrated with NFTs is you truly do feel like you own it, versus an in-game skin, and that in itself is an investment. The feeling of owning something versus, if a game shuts down, you are going to lose that skin, or if another Fortnite comes out, they probably don't want to transfer over the existing skins to the new one. So it's like there's things like that you would lose. So yeah, I think there's just a deeper connection that you can have with a following.
Yeah, when you told me yesterday that they could, or a brand could give a streamer the NFT to give out, yeah, I mean, didn't even think about that. And their stats on people playing the game, yeah, it's 300,000 people that played it, but we're not even talking about the number of people that created videos and number of views those had. So their marketing KPI is a lot more than just, visits. It's, we're talking views, and it's a lot more. So yeah, I just want to show real quick, when I put in the Sandbox LedgerVerse in YouTube, 2,000 views. So, I mean, that's from Ledger, right? So that's not that much. But here, these are all just YouTubers creating videos of the gameplay. 1,000, 1,500 there, 6,000, close to 3,000, 10, close to 9,000, 1,000. Yeah, they got a lot of publicity, exposure for creating, a game in the Sandbox. And, my guess is on the top end, they spent 100,000. That's the very high end. I think really, I think it's close to 50,000 for the amount of exposure they got. It seems really cheap.
And they actually own land. I'm curious to see in the future is, so they can keep doing that. They can keep building experiences and promoting through the land that they have. I'm curious to see what happens whenever the land is sold out and then a brand wants to come in. Let's say the NFL wants to come in, National Football League, and they want to have a sporting experience, but all the land's sold out. How is Sandbox going to facilitate them? I'm assuming what they'll do is because they're keeping some land. I'm assuming they'll allow brands to use that, but I would think that it's going to be cheaper for a brand to buy the land now, like Ledger has, for the long term. Assuming Sandbox is continuing to be successful, they're continuing to build on their product and make it, what we've talked about in the past is low friction for creators to build and promote their work. So there's some assumptions there, but it's an interesting way for how these companies are going to enter in these fixed land places.
I think that with Ledger getting so much publicity and so many people visiting their game, there's going to be a lot more exposure and education to other brands and letting them know this is a good time to get in. So I expect to see an even bigger alpha season for season 4. It'll be a lot bigger, a lot more brands, probably bigger brands. Well, I already know a few that are going to be in season 4.
I think that's accurate because I think that is what is happening with DeFi and crypto. I think the last narrative in the last bull run was institutions are joining in crypto. I think that was a little premature. I think that was a lot of retail still, and a few companies like Tesla bought some. MicroStrategy was a big one. So there was that, but I think institutions move a little slower than what the last bull run indicated. I think now you're going to see the true institutions coming into the DeFi space. Banks will come in. And I think, to your point, that is probably what's going to happen with the metaverse, is you're going to see some of these brands that, okay, they're pretty well aware that this is going to be the future, or it's a good chance, and you definitely want to hedge your bet on that. And I think that now is a quiet time where you'll see some of these brands coming in, just like institutions are coming in for crypto and DeFi. You'll see brands coming in metaverse place and fashion and those things. So yeah, I agree, definitely.
Yeah, we're working potentially on a proposal with a big brand. I can't say who it is, but I agree. These are big brands. These are not small retailers. These are Fortune 500 brands that are coming in.
And they can throw a lot of money around too.
Yeah. I think for this particular client, I don't even think they've done anything in crypto, right? So the analogy here is, MicroStrategy, they, came into the crypto space through crypto, right? By buying the asset, but they're not in NFTs. We're talking about I think the next bull run, brands are coming in with NFTs first, and then they may decide whether they want to hold crypto as the asset. That's a much broader and easier on-ramp than buying crypto assets.
Yeah. And I think, again, it's more personal too. Like if it's easier for a brand, or it makes more sense for a brand to create an NFT to connect with the users versus a token. Like, because it's NFTs you can technically show off in your wallet. That's what the current case is. Pretty much NFTs are just showing off right now. With the idea of you will be able to, there will be some interoperability, or these games will take off, or these metaverse experiences will become very good, and then you can display them in there. But yeah, it makes more sense for the brands to tap into that market versus creating a token. Maybe they create a token later once regulation is more clear and they want to do a reward system similar to what credit cards do with the points that you have. If you have Chase or something, you get points for every charge, like 3%. What is it? Points for, like, if you have a dinner, you use your Chase card, you'll get points that you can use for airfare. I'm sure there'll be some token that'll come along and replace that model, but it's too unclear right now with SEC and are these going to be securities and those things.
Yeah. Cool. So let's talk about my top 5 experiences in the Sandbox. So I'm going to share my screen again, and we'll jump into the top 5. So number 5 for me is Chen's Wonderland. It just looks really cool. It's a social hub, if I remember. It's a multiplayer social hub. And there's a lot of cool looking assets. So this person is doing a lot
on difficulty of the build. Was the primary?
I graded on a lot of things. I graded on how it looks, because that's important. World building. I guess I graded on how much time I spent on it, or playing it, right, or interacting with it. I didn't spend too much time playing this, but I thought, again, some of the assets, they're really amazing, and so that is worth something. So
some of these some of them are like, I can't wait to get out of here. The other ones you're like, okay, this is cool. I want to hang out and see what all all the NFTs that are there and those kind of things. So I get that.
Yeah, and it's especially because if it's a social hub, when it's multiplayer, you can't do much. So I don't know. I might be wrong. This might actually look like a single player experience, because I haven't seen anyone nearby. So I think this is single player.
Decked out gear though. I like.
But so this is a really cool asset that it's this complete set, and so that thing over there.
I have that sword. I know. Okay. Yeah, I know that outfit.
Yeah. So let me. Well. Yeah. Okay. So this looks like it's a single player experience, but so this was my number 5. Let's see.
What's the name of it again?
Chen's Wonderland. All right. So that was number 4. Let's see. Okay. So next one, I like Lululand. So this is for sure a multiplayer experience.
Are these in order, by the way? Are these number 5 and then number 4?
Yep, this is number 4. This is my, So again, this was really cool because, so first of all, we saw when I first played and I noticed the NFTs on the walls, I was like, that looks kind of odd. And instantly I realized they were running ads, but I didn't know how they were doing it. And so if you came to this experience another day, you'll see the images change. But of course, if they're NFT, you can't change them. So that's how I knew they were running ads. It was very innovative on their part to run ads, because again, if you're going to get 20,000 people coming into your experience, you're showing a lot of impressions, and someone is going to want to buy that.
Were you able to click on the NFTs or the ads, or is it just more of a billboard?
No, it was more of a billboard, and you can tell they were ads because some of them had QR codes.
That's one of the things that's going to be interesting in the. I definitely think the billboard ad stuff is going to be a big player, but it's like, how are these QR codes going to? Because there's a big thing with crypto, and again, if you play the Ledger,
so you see that?
Kind of know it's security. What is it?
I don't know if you saw that, so you just right there, right? Like very obvious. That's it. That's an ad.
Yeah,
that billboard right there.
So I'm curious to see how these QR codes are going to play out. What Sandbox will allow, because you can imagine if you're not controlling the ads, like the actual person's, like let's say you have the skeleton of the or the frame for the ad, but you're allowing anyone to upload an ad. That's definitely a security concern because you can put any QR code and you would drain someone's wallet potentially.
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to regulate that, because I agree it's billboard ads is something you'd want to tap into for sure, but also how do you keep it secure? Like how do you prevent bad players?
Yep. So that was number 4, and let's go to number 3. Okay. All right. So this is Sueco Splits Personality single player experience. I finished this completely. So it was one of the ones where it kept me engaged. And, like we're both gamers, right? So we know if a game, gets us to play 20, 30 minutes, it's pretty good. So what I like about this is it's a well-written story. You, at the end, have a pretty good understanding of who Sueco is, or not maybe good understanding, but you know something about him. And so that's really cool. And it's different gameplay combined. So there's almost like a trivia game. There's a little bit of melee fighting. And there's a little bit of parkour. So that's really cool. Like you're not doing all parkour like for 20, 30 minutes. Like I would not like that. So here's the first part, which is just parkour and like jumping around, which is fine, right? If it's like 5-10 minutes.
And if you work in the parkour with like a problem solving component, that helps too.
Yeah. So what I really like about it, I'm trying to get to the end of this first part, is once you get to the end of this part, you like jump to the next set of puzzles immediately without having to scroll the map. Like that's really annoying when you have to do that. So here you'll see once he talks to Sueco, then you jump to the next area in the next puzzle.
How big is this parcel?
It's a 1x1.
1x1?
Yeah, it did a lot. See, right there. So you notice I just jumped, so like you don't have to like go find the next quest. A lot of games did that in alpha season, and I'm just like, oh man, I cannot. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to spend like 2-3 minutes just walking around the map trying to find the next quest. So this second part here is trivia. So you kind of go around and talking to characters. They'll give you some facts about Sueco, and then you come back to Sueco and you answer the questions. Like pretty simple, but it's different. And that's what I like about it.
And isn't he, he's a musician, right?
Yep. So yeah, you know something about him. You know what kind of cars he likes. It's pretty cool. So here again. So after you finish this, you jump to the next part. And so this is something about his childhood. And so I think, if I remember right, like he might have been bullied. And so you're kind of fighting, something. And so I guess it's just a metaphor for, people that bully him or something.
Which ties into the storytelling stuff that.
Yeah. And so I like that the enemies, they're dark and they're shadows, so it's implying something, right?
Do you know the team who made this by chance?
I don't. And then I like this last part here. So you're trying to fix his car in the real version, in real life in the game, as opposed to the other parts. They're like memories of him. So you fix his car. You're gonna see. I like this mechanic right here a lot. Boom, right? That's really cool.
Yeah, I've seen that used a few times where like you find parts and like it's broken down. You find a part, it'll swap the asset to make it the next almost fixed, and then you continue to fix it. Which I like that that mechanic as well.
Yeah, so there are like they didn't do anything new. They just used the mechanics really well, and that's what I like a lot about these games is you can create really good experiences in the sandbox. Like we did it, right? We didn't do anything out of the box, or really, we didn't do anything out of the norm. Really, we did everything out of the box. And their game is one of the ones that did really well, I think. And it's a fun game. It's, obviously it's not as long, right? Because that person completed it in 7 minutes. But I think they're probably going to have a higher percent of people that complete that game than, like LedgerVerse. That's my opinion.
Yeah, they look polished.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's very polished. All right. Next one. Oh, it looks like I don't have this one. Oh, here it is. All right. So number 2 is The Walking Dead. This is the single player experience. So I love this because it's extremely on brand. There's no fighting whatsoever. And you're mostly trying to avoid the walkers, which is exactly what the IP is about. You never want to go up against walkers head to head. And this game, the story does it perfectly. So I think the creator who did this was the winner in the Walking Dead Game Jam because the puzzles, they're almost identical. And yeah, it's just awesome. The dialogue is really good.
The Game Jam, the Walking Dead themed Game Jam is what you're talking about.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. So the story here, it's cool. Is like you're kind of working with.
Real quick on that, the game jams are what? They're competitions that people can enter, and you win prizes. That's the whole concept of a game jam, and this was like probably one of the top.
This was, the Walking Dead one had the most prizes. I remember the top winner was getting like 250,000 sand or something ridiculous. And
that was when sand was quite a bit, wasn't it? I mean, sand was still $1.
So the walking, it was a little bit. I think it was like right around a couple of dollars, but it was a lot. I remember. This was before sand went to like $8. This was like before that. So, yeah. So the story here is you're kind of getting supplies, but you're helping this character Cassie. And so you're carrying walkie-talkies. And so that's very important in the story because you kind of get help from a narrator, but it makes sense because you're doing it through a walkie-talkie. Right? It's very important because then you can create a story. You can tie the story in much better. So this is one of the really nice mechanics I found in this game, which is, again, you're not going directly against the walkers, but you're tricking them to walk into traps. Of course, the traps can hurt you too. So the walkers, they're slow, which is exactly what the game is about. And yeah, you're just trying to kind of run. I also like that there is very limited health potions. They had one. I would have preferred that there would be none, right? Because you really can't heal in The Walking Dead. Like once you get bit, you're done. So there's this one part I really like, which was you're getting to the rooftop, and then if you stand on a certain spot, the walkers get shot at, and it's because that the character Cassie, she's like in a separate building, so she could see everything, and she has a rifle. Again, it's very on brand because you kind of expect that in the Walking Dead IP. So
I would say spoilers on this, but luckily there's no more. You can't play this anymore. So
yeah, exactly. So I thought the game went a little too long. I think that's why I didn't put it as number one. I think had this been maybe like 25% shorter, I think it would have been great.
What dragged on about it? Do you remember?
I just felt the same. Like it was the same puzzles over and over, but you're in a different setting, and that just became kind of redundant. Yeah, so I think repetitive. This is repetitive. And I remember this was the part where I kind of stopped playing.
Got it.
So I didn't finish this game, the experience.
It looks good though.
So surprisingly, there's very little asset development in this game. I looked, and there's just not that many. Because like the world of Walking Dead is not colorful, it's not glamorous, it's very like dark, right? So you kind of expect everything to look kind of ugly. All right, so let's see. Yeah. So, yeah. Again, great storytelling. Mechanics are very simple, very, very simple. But they did it well. And,
I would say I like too that you don't have to fight the walkers either, because I think the most repetitive mechanic on Sandbox is the combat component. It's just button mash. So I think when games go away from that, it's better.
I remember seeing a YouTuber play that game, the Walking Dead single player experience, and the first thing he did was put on his sword and armor. And I was like, oh man, this is exactly the opposite of that. So, All right. And my favorite experience in the Sandbox, I still like it. It's still number one. This is the Hanjin Music Palooza. So apparently, I didn't know this, but Hanjin is a Chinese artist, a music artist, musician. Again, it's just very colorful. So apparently this is multiplayer. Yeah, which is even more impressive that they made a fun multiplayer experience, because that's almost impossible to do, right? Because you're just limited with the number of mechanics you have. So this person,
which are the mechanics you have with multiplayer? Just so everyone knows the difference between single player and multiplayer. What are the differences in the game?
There's just a lot of things you can't do. So in multiplayer, you kind of expect more parkour-based games.
You can't have combat in multiplayer, right? There's no combat component.
Correct. Yeah. So there's no combat here. Again, that makes sense because this is a musician's, there shouldn't be any combat, right? So this first part was extremely, to me, I thought it was too hard. But this person did it on the first try, but it was very hard, to get through that first challenge. So this is a really cool, that guitar parkour game, was very, very cool. It's just done a little differently. You're doing parkour on a guitar. So, and again, each puzzle is not long, so you don't feel it's a grind. Yep. Yeah, so this is just a very cool, good looking assets. It's not amazing assets, but because it's not amazing. It's just it's enough for the experience. So this is a cool game mechanic I don't see, done too often, which is climbing. So they made it work. And then here you're doing a different set of parkour almost. So there's a little bit of combat, which is fine. And the other thing I like about this is kind of like with Sueco, the game, the other one, is that once you finish a quest, you know exactly where to go, and it's not far. And so there's a little maze here. That was like interesting. So you're playing a lot of different mini games, which I think is what should have been done for a lot of the social hubs. It's just a lot of these mini games. Like a maze, it's easy to build.
Yeah.
And
it looks like they had a problem solving component to it with the levers and stuff like that.
Yep. So this was cool. I thought the piano keys were like a nice touch. Again, it's not hard to make. It's a nice touch. Let's see. Yeah, and then this is the final where you're doing several miniature carnival games. And yeah, this is the final. Like you go up a balloon, higher balloon, and you kind of be able to see everything around you. Yeah, very nice touch.
Again, this is a 1x1 too, I'm assuming.
I think this is bigger. I think this might have been
bigger?
a 2x2. Yeah. So.
Cool.
Yeah, I think everyone did. I think those guys did a great job. They're much better at creating assets, which is fine because they leaned on what they were good at, and that made everything interesting. Some leaned much more on the game design, and not as much on the asset development, and that's great too because they leaned on their strength. So the last one, I think, had the right combination of both.
I wonder how many projects will partner up where people are better at asset creation. Others are the game mechanics, and how often that is going to happen where there's going to be partnerships with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, eventually, I think it depends on what the advertiser wants. If the advertiser only cares about number of plays and not care about number of completions, then I think the better it looks, you'll probably get the more players starting the experience. But if an advertiser wants to, do a lot of like in-game tie-ins to things outside, right? Maybe they want such that like a quest that happens mid-game will be tied to like an NFT giveaway, and then if you complete it, a percentage of those people will get a different NFT. Then they'll care about games where people want to play all the way through. And when that happens, asset creation is not as important as game design.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So any other thoughts before we wrap up this episode?
None on my end.
Cool. So yeah, those were our top 5. And yeah, we look forward to seeing experiences in season 4 and including yours truly. That's it.